Oh, no, I need to go.
Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland. We are live, Karl. My name is Kris. I am your host for this evening, and in true ABW format, the intro was completely scuffed. Right, we've got plenty to discuss this evening, so I shall waste no time at all and introduce the fine fellows I have with me. I've already kind of semi-introduced Karl, but he kind of almost introduced himself there. How you doing, big man?
I'm okay. My mum is not. As I said earlier, today, dear listeners and watchers, today is my mother's birthday. So happy birthday, mum. Kris told me that if I don't leave my mum's birthday meal and come and do the podcast, he's going to kick me out of ABW and then tell everyone that I'm starting a rival Ian Wright Wonderland podcast. Now, clearly, I'm not going to, but the rumours and viciousness, and because Kris said he's going to pay for a tick on Twitter, it's going to be official, obviously. So I had to leave my mother's birthday meal. So my mum said that Kris is not invited to Christmas dinner.
Wow. She's angry.
Everything Karl's just said is a complete lie. So I just want to put that out there right now. I actually told Karl he could have a night off and spend it with his delightful mother, but he messaged me back and said he can't stand to be in his mum's presence for more than 5 minutes and he wanted to do a podcast. So I was like, that's fine, mate, no problem. So,
Danny,
just saying.
Danny, where's HR's number, please?
It's Mr. Fife. Good luck getting hold of him. Oh, no, it's Dom.
Yeah, I was going to say good luck with that one.
Saucy Dom.
Dom's still alive.
Wow.
He still chats to us
Is he?
every once in a
Changed
while
his
in
number.
the old group of
Didn't bother let me know. I'm good at hints.
Well, it's because it's you. I got his new number, just saying. Anyway, Danny, you're here. You kind of have to be because, I mean, there's not many of us left. I mean, Ellis is like moving house. Josh is...
Oh, hashtag fuck
I don't know,
Ellis.
he's at some kind of fashion parade or... Yeah, exactly. John... I don't know what John's doing this week, actually. I know he said he was busy, so who knows who or how.
Josh doesn't even tell us what he's doing ananymore, does he? He just says no.
That's because
he's moonlighting.
He's a man of the people.
He's moonlighting today. You've not seen him on another podcast.
What's he?
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, really? He's
moonlighting. He's on a different podcast today. I saw a tweet from him and I thought, you bastard, you couldn't come to ABW, but you're on a different podcast. What is he doing today? I saw a tweet from him.
Yeah, what podcast is this? We need to slander them immediately.
Oh, big Kev come after us.
He's on Avenue Roadcastle podcast today.
Oh, that's not even what I've heard of. Is that on your list, Danny?
I think it is.
Avenue Roadcast, I should say.
I think that is. Remember Michael Price? He used to do You Are My Arsenal. I think that's him. And Drew.
Oh yeah.
And who was the blogger that we had doing stuff with us? That blogger. Anyway, he's there as well. I asked him if he'd want to come and do one on here, and he said, "Go away. He's big time now."
But quite happy to take our sort of frontline stuff. Yeah. Okay. I mean, Josh supports Brighton anyway. Fuck him. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, he's not even a real fan, so whatever. Right. That's the intros out of the way, if you can call that an intro. It sort of was. So we are gonna. It'll probably be a fairly short show like last week because we've only got the one game to talk about. And straight off the bat, let's just say we know there's a game going on in 20 minutes. But nobody can watch it. So allegedly it doesn't happen. So if we win, then it sort of happened and we'll find out later. If we lose, it just never happened. So
that's the contempt they have for the fans.
Well,
touch on that because I think that, like Danny is saying, I think that is mad. Like for that game not to be anywhere, like even a dodgy stream or even Arsenal to show it, even though they charge fans like a $5 to watch it. But for it to be nowhere on TV, that's crazy.
I don't know who's got the rights to the League Cup anymore. I don't know.
I'll be able to find it. I'll be watching
it. And it was ITV. Well, you can keep us across it. We've got Agent Femi in the ground who's going to send us updates. But
he's live streaming.
Yeah, I don't know. Live streaming, yeah, get thrown out for that. But I don't know. All I would say is I don't really care. Does anybody do we really care?
Well, it'd be interesting.
I don't.
Saliba's
I know it's like
starting,
sacrilege.
Is he? I don't know
Yeah,
what
I
team
found
he
that a
is.
bit. I mean, it's a fairly strong team. Cedric's in there holding Saliba, El Nene, Sambi, Nketiah, Marquinhos, Vieira. Who am I missing out? Tierney, I think. It's a pretty strong side, and the bench is full of the regulars. So there you go. Karl Heinz, I think
Charles Watts.
And Hein is only starting because Matt Turner's got an injury, isn't he?
No, Matt Turner's on the bench.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, he's on the bench, is he? Oh,
yeah, I thought that was a bit odd.
Oh, yeah, but he's only just come back. He has been injured, hasn't he? So maybe they don't want to risk him ahead of the World Cup, which would make sense, I suppose. So, and Reiss Nelson, that's the other name I've left out there. So, yeah, it's a fairly strong side. But interestingly, I think Brighton's is fairly strong as well.
Brighton's is very strong, just looking at it.
Yeah, that's the boy from Chelsea, isn't it? Levi Colwill. Lamptey's decent. They've changed the goalkeeper, obviously. I've never heard of Enciso.
Solly March is playing. So
yeah, and again, pretty strong bench as well there as well. So basically, if you've come here for live reaction, you might get it if we find out some scores. But ultimately, we probably won't talk about that game much at all because we'll be off air by the time it finishes. So anyway, let's go back to Sunday and talk about this game. Now, I know for a fact, Karl, that you're not a big fan of Chelsea. I mean, I know naturally you hate Spurs like all of us as the most, but I think Chelsea is one of those teams that you hate with a passion. So it must have been rather nice for you to just sit back and watch us basically outplay them on their own pitch, wasn't it? I mean, a 1-0 result, but you know that like meme where you got somebody really tall holding a child's head like at arm's length. It felt like that, you know, and barring a couple of excellent blocks from Thiago Silva and I think Gabriel Jesus on another day puts that header home, it would have been more emphatic. But a win is a win, and that's 3 in a row at Stamford Bridge. I think I'm right in saying. What was your kind of overall emotions on the day? How did you feel about it all?
Weirdly, when we play anyone in the top 6, I get nervous, you know, like because nobody really wants to. There's always an area of nervousness. Man United, Liverpool, Man City. This is one of the games where I genuinely wasn't nervous, and I don't know if that was because of how badly Chelsea were or are, or how good we were. Like from the kickoff, from the first minute, I wasn't like, oh shit, like, I'm really nervous about this game. Like, I don't know what way this could go. I was really, really calm. And I know people are talking about, you know, the whole Aubameyang factor, which I think we'll talk a bit later about, but I wasn't worried. And the fact that we controlled the whole game, that game was very comfortable for us. Like, it was almost like we were playing, I said, Nottingham Forest. Like, it was so comfortable. You're right what you said, Kris. On a different day, we're putting 3-4 past them. They had a few excellent blocks, and I think our passes in the final third were a bit wayward, to be very honest. So I think that's something we've got to work on. But to go away to Stamford Bridge to a team that's spent billions in the past decade, and I think almost 200 million this season, and for us to control the game as we did, to nullify their players, to nullify their starting striker, to make their defenders that push as far back as they did, we were brilliant. It was Thomas Partey had a field day because he had no pressure on the ball whatsoever, which I found really, really strange. Like how, you know, Thomas Partey's strengths, and you know for a fact that he, you give him time and space, he will spray passes left, right, and centre. And Chelsea didn't think to put a man on him, which is either tactically stupid of their manager, or they just couldn't handle us. And I think that in this game, you saw how good we can be. Like in certain games, you see the best of Arsenal and the worst of Arsenal. Like I think when we played Southampton, that's probably like the worst of Arsenal, or we played Leeds because we were tired. And I think this game, you saw the best of Arsenal and just how good we can be.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And Danny, Karl's kind of read my mind a bit by talking about a couple of individual performances there. Thomas Partey is he's one of those players that I think he's he's really found the groove, hasn't he? In recent weeks, in particular, like he's dominating that central midfield area. I think they highlighted it on a couple of channels I watched highlights of afterwards. His partnership with Xhaka is really important, but his individual ability to kind of read the play and know where to be, it doesn't feel like he's a defensive midfielder. It just feels like to me like he's just an all-round midfielder. He's not, by nature, he's not defensive, quote unquote, but seems to be in the right positions at the right times. And once again, in a midfield of Chelsea's that was, but it's a game that you would think would be a tough challenge. I just thought he absolutely breezed through this game. But his form is so key, isn't it, with this run that we're on? Because he's been a bit of a monster in that midfield area.
Yeah, I went on the Twitter Spaces that Karl and Femi do after the game, and I was saying on there that I think about the 19th minute, he got the ball, gave it to someone else. He got it back, gave it to someone else. He got it back, gave it to someone else. And this went on for about a good 30, 40 seconds, and they did not know what to do. And it reminded me a little bit when Emery took over at Arsenal. Remember the whole Petr Cech playing out from the back thing? We're doing that to every team now. They don't know what to do because we're on them. I was looking at what the gegenpress meant, and I did know what it was, but I didn't know that those two things were the same thing. But the amount of pressure that we put on teams when they're trying to break out from the back, they don't know what to do. We're passing around them, and then when you're going to Stamford Bridge against allegedly one of the best teams in the Premier League, and we're making them look silly. Aubameyang had 6 touches the entire game. El-Nen, was it who came on for us in the dying minutes? It was I think it was El-Neni came on in the 87th minute and had more touches in the last 3 minutes of the game than Aubameyang had in the 64 minutes that he was on the pitch for. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it?
You gotta love that, haven't you?
And
yeah.
Look at this stat. This is a quote from someone. It says, Arsenal are the only team to have scored in every Premier League game so far this season, while also having the joint most clean sheets and joint fewest goals conceded. What a time to be alive.
It's not bad, is it?
I like it.
Yeah. And it's that midfield area. Let me sort of ask you, Karl, about, you've sort of given the praise to Thomas Partey, but Granit Xhaka has been, dare I say, fucking excellent. If you know, you know. He's just got a new lease of life, hasn't he? I don't know what it is. To me, it's not. We've been over the whole rehabilitation with the fans and the fact that he's gone full circle and he's almost a fan favorite now, if not is a fan favorite. But I think it goes deeper than that. I feel like this is a player he's almost reinvented his game, hasn't he? He hasn't just hit a patch of form. He looks a different player. He's still quite happy to start a scrap in the last minutes, but it was with the intention of wasting time. I think Chelsea lost 2 to 3 minutes of that stoppage time because of that. But he was very controlled. He still gets booked, he still puts in the odd challenge that you sort of go, oh God. But his overall game, he does look a different player, and arguably is proving a lot of people wrong, including myself, when I sort of said that I felt we could do better. He's just a new player, isn't he? And he's got that confidence about him, that, dare I say, swagger of a man who's going to a World Cup and is in banging form. Impressed you overall this season?
I think he's got a new lease of life. I think when he first came to Arsenal, he was seen as a quote-unquote defensive midfielder. And his tackling wasn't the best. Let's to say that. And you're right, and then I think he came in with a reputation that he had a hot head. So then referees played on it, and he got some very unnecessary red cards. Some deserved, I'll be honest, but some unnecessary. And you're right, he's reinvented himself. I think the fact that he can play higher up the pitch, and he almost is a box-to-box midfielder, because whereas, he does come back and help out with the defensive side, he's also the highest midfielder up the pitch. Like sometimes you see him in front of Martin Odegaard. So that is brilliant. Obviously Arteta has said, you know what, don't worry about the defensive side. I want you to play. And obviously he does that. He's got a great relationship with Martinelli on the left. And I think why he also doesn't have to worry about the defensive side is that when Zinchenko's in there, Zinchenko is also, you could almost say, an auxiliary centre midfielder. So then he knows that if he loses the ball, there's someone behind him as well. So he's not having to run back and make them last-ditch silly challenges that will get him into trouble, which I think is now brilliant. And I think what happens is now all teams seem to think that he's a defensive midfielder. I don't expect Granit Xhaka to be as high up the pitch as he is. So when he is there, people are like, oh shit, what are you doing there? Like, I can't believe it. And then he just goes on and obviously has a shot, passes the ball, does what he needs to do. So for me, like you said, like you, Kris, he has changed my mind completely, because I was a Granit Xhaka out. I thought 2 seasons ago, you know, I just wanted him out because I didn't see what he did. You know, he didn't really bring anything to Arsenal. He was in the squad always, but like, what did he do apart from just get booked and get sent off? And obviously Arteta sat down with him, seen his game and the coaches around Arsenal as well, and he's totally changed. So, you know, credit where credit is due. He's now playing excellently, and long may he continue.
Yeah, strikes me as a first pick for Arteta now. And one thing that I think, even when likes of Lacazette were being heralded as being dressing room leaders, I think Xhaka has always had that. He's always had that captain without the armband, even when he had the armband and all that was going on. He's very much the vocal leader in the team, isn't he now? Probably him and Ramsdale, I think, are the two that stand out in that regard. So all power to him. Danny, this question's been asked on 100 different podcasts, so I'm going to make it 101 because why not? Gabriel Jesus. I mean, should we be worried that he isn't finding the net? I've said for weeks I could not give a toss if he doesn't score again for the rest of the season if he carries on playing as well as he is, because his ability to draw players out of position. That something else I love about him is that his work rate and his awareness of work rate. Like, he doesn't just charge around the pitch like a headless chicken. If somebody steps out of defence, like Karl was saying, like Zinchenko pushes into midfield, the first player chasing back is always Gabriel Jesus when it's required. And equally, he's the first player to drift wide, which I will say makes it even more baffling that Mikel chooses to play him wide when Nketiah's in the team. But that's probably for another day. But would you be worried that, for example, that header, he didn't put that away, and there's another one that I think that was a really good save? Any concerns, or are you just quite happy that he's providing second assists and everything that goes in between?
Well, normally when you've got a recognised striker as your main striker, your big man, as in cost, wages, transfer fee, all of that lot. If he doesn't score, generally your team is in trouble. Look back at the Giroud. We should have won the league, but Giroud went that 16-game league games without scoring a goal. But Aubameyang, he was the main man. He wasn't scoring. We were doing terrible. Ian Wright back in the day, Alan Smith back in the day, and even Thierry Henry, but a little bit less with him because we got the same situation roughly now as we had in the Thierry Henry days. That if he doesn't score, everyone else around him scores. We've had 15 different goal scorers this season. I looked this up before the show, and like you're saying, it doesn't matter if he doesn't score goals because he's getting assists, and his ability to run around. Although I don't like how deep that he goes, he reminds me of Sanchez when he goes so deep to go and get the ball. But it doesn't matter. We're top of the league. We're one of the top, apart from Man City. We're never going to catch them on goals. We're playing magnificent football. Everyone is having to eat their words when it comes to Arteta as a manager and all these other things like that. And it doesn't matter. The only time it will matter is if we're not scoring any goals at all. Remember last season, we had Smith Rowe come off the bench and save us a few times, and we had Saka scoring. Then after that, no one was really scoring, and we're going, well, we're in a lot of trouble here. And then Eddie did a couple of goals against Chelsea and a couple against Leeds. In that situation, if no one is scoring, then it's a problem. But if it ain't broke, I mean, we're top of the league. We're running away with it. We're looking odds on to be at least second place in the league this season, which is why this podcast is called "It Has to Be Back On," because it has to be, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I was going to ask that question later on, but maybe I could just chuck it in now. I'll ask you both. Well, I'll start with you, Danny. I mean, if we don't, I wouldn't say if we don't win the league, that's ridiculous. But if we don't finish in, I would say, the top 3 now, would that be deemed as a failure? Is the wrong word here, but it would be disappointing, wouldn't it? To be, I think somebody was saying that you needed something like, I don't know, was it 60 points from the second half of the season to secure, just something like that. But we've got to be on track for being the closest team to Man City. And realistically, if we don't finish in the top 3, you'd probably look back at the season and go, "Oh, it'd be quite a spectacular fallout, wouldn't it?" So, would you class top 3 as an ultimate aim, or are you still considering looking higher?
At top 4, we have to get preferably top 3. But at the moment, we're on 34 points. We're already 8 points ahead of. This is with a game in hand. 8 points ahead of Spurs. We're 11 points ahead of Man United. And we've almost double the number of points Liverpool have got. They've got 19. We've got 34. So to be halfway through, we've got 6 games to go before we're halfway through the season, and we're on 34 points already. I'm not worried about it at all. It's definitely going to happen, especially if we strengthen in the transfer window, because I'm not sure how much longer we can get Partey and Xhaka to be the dream team in midfield. So knowing our luck, something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, well, we got Super Mo back, of course, but yeah. Karl, same question to you before I ask you another one, but are you aiming at, are you sort of saying top 3 is a minimum, or are you still happy with top 4, or do you have any concerns that we can't keep this run going to secure that top 4 place?
I just think top 4 has to be the minimum. Even if we end up 4th, the goal was always to end up back in the Champions League. Goal that was a goal last year. That's the goal this year. Nothing has changed.
Does it matter?
I don't think.
Does it matter, by the way, if we finish 4th, 3rd, or in terms of qualifying rounds? Is that still a thing?
No, because there is no more qualifying rounds, is there? Because who ended 4th? Remember, Spurs went straight in this year.
Yeah, good point.
They didn't qualify. Right. So for me, I don't care. And what will make me laugh is if for some unknown reason we end up 4th, you're a rival fan saying, you thought you was going to win the league. No, we didn't. There is not a fan right now, an Arsenal fan, who really believes that we're going to win the league. We know we're not. And we are happy with 4th. You have to remember that we've been 8th, 5th, 5th. 4th is the goal. Like, you can't, I think you've got to do baby steps. And yeah, we spent money and we bought players in. But we've been at the Champions League for 6 years now, is it? I want to say.
Yeah.
We need
that
is more, the goal is to get back into the Champions League. We have to do that. And I think if we do that, then that's our aim. And then we can build from there. Would I be a little bit disappointed? Yeah, considering the start that we had, I would still be a little bit disappointed that we didn't finish higher up the table. But if we get into the Champions League, I'll be very happy. Like Danny said, I think that we have to strengthen in January, because we're always one game away from a Thomas Partey injury. He can't play every single game. He literally just can't. Granit Xhaka as well can't play every single game. Saka can't play every single game. Martinelli can't play every single game. And yeah, I totally understand. Elneny's coming back. Smith Rowe hopefully should be back after the World Cup. So we are getting some of our injured players back. But I think this league run that we're going on is brilliant, and we're just going to enjoy it. I don't think any Arsenal fan really thinks that we're going to win the league. But if we can challenge, that puts us in good stead, because when we do have that Champions League money and Champions League status, we will get different brand of players who will be more willing to come to us, and we can pay a little bit more for them.
Yeah, and more importantly, keep the ones we've got as well. I think that's massive, because there's 3 or 4 players that we're looking at new deals for that, we really could do with keeping hold of.
Plus, you look how Man City have been without Haaland.
Oh yeah, imagine. Well, I mean, he does like an injury, doesn't he, as well? So you never know. And by the way, that penalty they got was an absolute joke at the weekend. By the way,
that was never a penalty. Never.
No, De Bruyne is a wonderful footballer, but he's also a cheat. That question from Stoof is an interesting one, because I don't know. Thanks, Kat. I don't know what the circumstance is if an English team wins the Europa. I presume it just extends the place. I guess. I guess sort
you
of.
You can't have 5 in the Champions League.
No, but I guess what he's he or she, is alluding to is say Man United won the Europa League, and they're already in it, and they finished outside the top 4. Do we lose a place because they have to go into it or not? Boy Dio's actually just come in. Europa League winner is an addition. So if we have a UCL English winner, neither of them will be in the top 4. We have at least 6. Okay, yeah, so they do just extend it down the Champions League then. So, and to be honest, it's irrelevant because Arsenal win in the Premier League and Europa League and the FA Cup and the League Cup, so it doesn't really matter anyway.
Obviously.
So, yeah, obviously. Goes without saying. Karl, just sticking with you for a minute. The French national squad has just been announced and William Saliba is in it, which I don't think is a big surprise to anybody really, but good news for him. And I've got a sneaking suspicion he might even force his way into that team. If he doesn't, it's a bit of a travesty, but we shall see.
Who's the current 2 centre-backs for the French?
Varane and Kimpembe, who has not...
Raphael Varane of Man United.
Yeah, well, yeah. But to be fair to Varane, I mean, he hasn't always been brilliant for United. He has been France's consistently their best defender for a number of years. But don't forget, although he is fit to go, he hasn't played for a few weeks since that injury at Chelsea. So there's no guarantee he'll be... he'll be fit to start. And let's also not forget, Saliba came to Arsenal as a guy who was coming in to fight for his place. It wasn't like he came in, I don't think any of us all expected him to just walk straight into the side and stay there, as he has done, and as he is tonight in the starting lineup every week. But his partnership with Gabriel, of course, getting the winning goal at the weekend as well. There is indeed the French squad. It's a big summer, isn't it? For our players, and we'll start with Gabriel. We'll probably go through a couple of others in a minute, but with Saliba, sorry. But once again, he was just monstrous at the weekend, wasn't he? He's just such a cultured defender. Had Aubameyang in his pocket. Anything that was thrown at him, no issue whatsoever. He's one we really need to build around, isn't he? He's one we need to sell the dream to and keep hold of, because that partnership, him and Gabriel, is just so good.
I think signing Saliba to a long-term contract is probably more important than bringing in a player, because to what we want to do, he's so integral. Like he's just so good. And it's, like every defender, he has his moments and he wobbles a little bit. But on the whole, he's just so good at what he does. And I think the partnership between him and Gabriel, and also Ben White as well, like it's just so good. And the fact that he's so young as well, you just think what level he can go to. So he's what, 20? Is he 21? Is he
21? Yeah.
So imagine when he reaches his prime at 26, 27, he's literally just going to be, Maldini, Ferdinand, like Vidic, Campbell, Adams rolled into one. Like, because he's that.
No pressure.
But he is. And like, I think signing into a new deal I think it's imperative. And obviously, I think now he's in the World Cup and he's obviously very happy. Now's the time to say, look, the performances that you for Arsenal, that's what got you there. Come on, like, sign it. And hopefully he will do. I think the only thing I want to see is after the World Cup, does he still have the same performances? Because obviously, some players will be playing out of their skin because they want to get into their country's respective World Cup squads. Now that's done and dusted, have you still got the same desire? Have you still got the same drive to perform well? And I'm not saying he's not going to do that, because there's no indication that he isn't going to do that. But I'll just be interested to see all players, to see if they still played exactly the same.
And I think from a perspective of somebody who supports France, I think it's fair to say that most people who are a label follower are slightly concerned about this World Cup. We're all fearing the worst. It just feels like there's a lot of big names and not in that squad. We know Kante hasn't made it. Pogba hasn't made it either. There is a bit of a concern, I think it's fair to say, from all of us, that suggests that maybe, France might not go deep into this tournament. We might be wrong, and we'll see how that affects, Saliba coming back. But I think at his age, it's very different to someone like a Messi or a Ronaldo. It's not his last World Cup. He should play arguably 2-3 more World Cups. He's not 22 until March next year. His best years are ahead of him. But when you look at that, what France have got to play in that centre-back role, the squad they've named, Pavard and Koundé, it looks like Deschamps is going to potentially use Koundé as a right-back again, which I'm not particularly keen on the idea. But the only other centre-backs that are in competition, I think, with Saliba, if you assume Varane is a lock, which I think he will be a fit, realistically, you're looking at Lucas Hernandez, who has mostly played left back, but Theo Hernandez should get that nod. Konate, who's barely played for Liverpool all season, and Upamecano, who's much improved this season, but had quite a wobble when he first joined Bayern Munich. So a lot of it will come down to training, but I would not be at all surprised to see that young man in the central midfield. And I tweeted about this earlier, not so much Arsenal related, and I think we're probably going to have missed the boat in terms of looking for another midfielder, but Youssouf Fofana's made that squad. He's absolutely tailor-made for Arsenal, by the way, if we were. But I fear that Monaco will probably be looking for quite a lot of money for him, particularly if he has the sort of tournament that I suspect he might. Danny, just on the flip side of that, though, we saw, we'll talk about Ben White in a minute, but speaking about some of the other players that go into the World Cup, we knew Granit was going with Switzerland. That's all fine. What about the flip of the coin in that Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus made the Brazilian squad, but Gabriel Magalhaes did not? Do you have any concerns over that for his form? I'll be honest, I was quite surprised that he didn't. When you look at the options that, I mean, they've taken 63-year-old Dani Alves. I don't understand. I just don't like. I get it. He's a legend. He is, but he can barely run anymore. So I can only assume he's gone as like a mascot or something. But although he probably wasn't going to start, Thiago Silva's 38 now. Marquinhos is still at the peak of his powers, but it's not like Brazil are not known for their defenders, and I feel like Gabriel's probably the most in form of the lot, and he's not going. Do you feel like that will be a massive sort of dent in his confidence, or do you think he'll shake that off? And again, he's got many years ahead of him.
He's going to be a bit pissed off about it all because he's in form. He's defending. He's got scoring goals. He's setting stuff up. He's in the best form of his life. And then he's going, hold on a second, these blokes have all been to loads of World Cups before. And why aren't I in it? That's not really fair. But I bet he does go to the World Cup. I bet one of those pensioners is going to get injured. And they've probably got a short list, and he's top of that short list because he's going to have to go. Because if they want to do anything, they can't rely on Dani Alves. I mean, he went back to Barcelona recently, didn't he? And I think he's off again. But you can understand.
He's at Pumas, I think it is. In Mexico.
In Mexico.
I think so. Last time I checked.
Yeah, you can understand them bringing the bloke at Chelsea, whose name I forgot, because he's just
Thiago
immense.
Silva?
Yeah, he's just.
Yeah,
I
mean, even at 38, he's a quality defender.
He's the Brazilian Maldini, isn't he? And he'll just go on forever. But yeah, you got to. I was thinking about this the other day, whether he's going to affect his league form, because we all know that he's just had a baby and you don't get any sleep for the first few years, as Ellis has found out. And with the disappointment of being dropped from the Brazil team when his club's side are top of the league, he's starting every game. He's playing really, really well. Not magnificently, because sometimes he does do a few errors because he's been sleepwalking because of the lack of sleep. But I would be a little bit concerned about him. Arteta will probably do the right thing and go up to him and go, look, you're still a young man. You've got 3 World Cups in you, because I doubt very much Brazil are not going to qualify for the next few ones. So, yeah, but it is a bit annoying. But it just shows you, I'm listening to the Nicholas Bentner book at the moment, which is a bit depressing. And he says that he went back to play in, Bentner is Danish, and he went to play and he went to play in, not Norway. Oh, whichever club. Rosenborg, I think he went back to.
Rosenborg in Denmark, yeah.
There you go. And he said, I went back there. I was playing really good football. I was top goal scorer the season before. And then the manager just dropped me. And he says, that broke me. He said, after that, I didn't want to play football anymore. But it's different ends of their careers. But it does show, even someone as experienced as Bentner, how much that can affect him not going to the World Cup when he expected to. And even the other people, his teammates are going, well, you should have gone. And even the old manager said you should have gone. But it can really affect a player, and it is. We'll see in the days coming up. But yeah, I think they've made a mistake there.
The one that surprises me just looking at that squad is Bremer, and not because he hasn't been good. He was very, very good for Torino in Serie A last year. I think he got in the team of the year in Serie A, and he was very good. But since he's gone to Juventus, we all know that Juve have been having a bit of a time of it, to say the least. Although, of course, they beat Inter at the weekend. Of course they did. But that's probably the one that surprised me slightly, just because I feel like on form, I feel like Gabriel should go. But then you look at the squads, and we'll come on to England in a minute. Some managers just have their favourites, don't they? And they just, no matter what, they're going to take them. I think there's talk that, there was somebody in the Spanish squad, I'm sure, that Xavi was thinking about taking. I think some people are like, what? But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a case of that. Is it Chiche, isn't it, the Brazilian manager? Maybe he just prefers Bremer, and that's the way it is. But yeah, Gabriel doesn't strike me as a guy who will get down in the dumps. The one I was worried about was Martinelli, because I felt like that would have broken him. So I'm really glad that he's going, even if he won't be a starter. Although if he hadn't have gone and Richarlison Fraud had have gone, I probably would have thrown my desktop out the bloody window. Anyway, let's talk about England, if we must. Ben White, Karl. He's a very likable bloke, but he's also an exceptionally good footballer. And I feel like at the start of the season, we all sort of saw him at right back and we went, really? Like, we knew he could probably play holding defensive midfielder. But the thing I really like about him at right back is he's just got on with it, hasn't he? He's essentially been taken out of centre back, where, don't forget, he played very well at centre back last season, but Saliba came back, and it's almost like Arteta went, well, I kind of want to play both of you. And he's not only outshirted, if that's even a phrase, Tomiyasu, who was injured, but he now, to me, feels like the automatic first choice at right back. Surely he's got to get in that England squad, hasn't he? Just for his versatility alone. But he's banging form, isn't he? Like, everything he does, whether it's chipping the ball onto Martin Odegaard's head, as he did on Sunday, which amused me greatly, or his deadpan interviews. But all that aside, his footballing ability, he's a quality player, isn't he?
Ben White is really so much underrated. £50 million is now looking like a steal for him, to be honest, because he's so versatile. Should he go to the World Cup? Of course he should. Put it this way, if you have Maguire in your squad, there's no way Ben White, if you're looking on form, and I think that you should always pick a team on form, because as the players that are playing well, Ben White should be starting probably with John Stones for England centre-backs. Both of them at the moment are playing at right back, because John Stones is playing right back for Manchester City at the moment. But those are the players in form. But we know that England won't. England will have Dyer and probably Maguire at centre-back, and that just says it all.
Trying not to laugh.
For me, like, it's a joke. So Ben White has to go to the World Cup, and he has to start. But I got a feeling that he will go to the World Cup, but he won't even kick a ball, which for me would be so sad, because Gareth Southgate has his favourites. Like, he's talking about bringing Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips has played 13, and that's 13 minutes of football this season. And they're talking about bringing him into the England squad. That is an absolute joke. How can someone who's played 13 minutes of football be in the England squad? How can Maguire, who didn't kick a ball, didn't start a game for Manchester United until their last Europa League Cup game, but he's looking to be England starting centre back? It's a joke. And this is why I have an affiliation with England, because I do like them. Obviously, it's the country I live in, but I can't. Sometimes they kick themselves in the foot, and this is what they're doing now. So it is what it is with them. Like, but Ben White has to be in that squad. He has to be, and he should start, because he's just so in form at the moment. He's got a great relationship with Granit, with Saka, which is another person who will definitely go to the World Cup. So yeah, you're looking at it thinking, yeah, it's brilliant, but Gareth Southgate's going to pick who he picks, and he probably will end up throwing some surprises in there and looking at it thinking, what are you doing? Like James Maddison. James Maddison has to go to the World Cup, but I've got a feeling that he'll miss out.
Yeah, I agree. He's and I know he divides opinion. Maddison, he can be a bit flashy, but on form, he's one of the best English talents in the Premier League right now. It's okay though, Karl. Come across. Come to the dark side. Follow the French team. You'll be fine. We'll look after you. Experience success. Something England will never have. Before I get cancelled, let's move on swiftly. I wanted to, and I appreciate, don't get us wrong, guys. We're as delighted as anybody that we beat Chelsea, and love to sort of go into it in more depth. But it was one of those games that, barring the goal and the fact we won the game, there wasn't a huge amount to talk about. I suppose I would be remiss not to mention that it is nothing personal. So that's a thing. And he, as you rightly said earlier on, Danny, 8 touches. I mean, he's finished, isn't he? Let's be honest. And I did think it was quite interesting how not really any of our players showed him any respect, which I quite liked, actually. Full of that.
Funny.
But it was, yeah. But the question I was going to ask you, Danny, is ahead of the World Cup, and we'll probably do a bit more of a World Cup themed show next week because, again, we've only got the Wolves game to go before next week's show. But ahead of that World Cup, do you sort of feel like, do you feel like Arteta's got almost a bit of a tough job on his hands because he's going to have to pick up those players that come home early, and we are going to see a shock. I mean, all jokes aside, I wouldn't be massively surprised if England bounced out in the group stages. The way France's midfield looks at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if they did as well. So he is going to have to manage the players that go out there and go deep into the tournament and those that come back early. Do you think he's got quite a lot of work ahead of him in this downtime to plan for what happens when they come back? Because it does feel like a 2-season season within one season, this Premier League, doesn't it? We could come back and we could be hopelessly out of form. Liverpool could go on an 8-game winning streak and we could end up 5th. There's a lot of work for Arteta to do with the players that he keeps back and those that go to the World Cup. Is that concerning to you in any way, or are you just going to deal with it when it happens?
Well, we've seen what wonders Arteta can work during a water break during a game. We can rearrange the team. So if he can do that in 2 minutes, just imagine what he can do in a month. It's going to be fine. The players that will go, I don't think many of them are going to go that far, other than possibly, like you were saying about France, they might go a little bit further, but they got their DMs missing and their talisman in Pogba. And I can see England struggling because I've got PTWD, post-traumatic Welsh disorder, so I can't even talk about those after being abused for years and years. Been told to shut up. So those guys, England's group shouldn't be that hard. So, but then again, Ramsdale isn't going to be number one. Ben White isn't going to be playing because Southgate is an idiot. So I kind of, it doesn't matter what I wish, because if my wishes come true, I'd be looking like Brad Pitt and I'd be able to fly. But God, I've said that. I forgot what I was going to say now. But I'd like to see England get knocked out in the group. I'd like to see England muck it up, lose all their games, and Southgate to get kicked out and get fired, and then be off to Man United as their next manager. Because being English and watching these teams, we have had a couple of generations of amazing, talented players, groups of brilliant players. And when you've got a fucktard like Southgate in charge, if he could, he'd play 11 right backs because he's a shit player. He was a shit manager at Middlesbrough, and he's a shit manager for England. But because of the quality of the players that he has got, he managed to get to the final. But then fuck the final up because he's a moron. And I'd really love it to see England fuck up, get knocked out in the group stage, and the USA and Iran to go through to the next round. And I can, just to get rid of him, because this current crop of brilliant England players, and some of the older ones like Sterling, who's still got it, who's still a brilliant player, but they have been wasted with that dickhead in charge.
But it is a tougher group than it looks on paper, I think. I do. I mean, Iran are no mugs. USA, it's almost like a derby, isn't it, for whatever reason. they'll raise their game, and Welsh is literally a derby, isn't it? So I mean, I do think it will be pretty tough. When is it they announce their squad? Is it tomorrow? England squad?
I don't give a fuck about the World Cup.
No.
Yeah, they're announcing tomorrow. Yes,
it tomorrow. Is tomorrow. Okay. And I think of our squad, am I right in saying that only, as it stands right now, I would say it's probably only Xhaka and potentially Saka that are automatic first team picks that are going. Am I right? I can't think of any others.
Partey.
Oh, Tomiyasu, if he's fit.
And Partey.
Who's the other one? Partey. Oh, Partey, of course, with Ghana. Yeah. Norway didn't make it. Egypt didn't make it, did they? Or am I imagining that? They didn't. No. So yeah, because you'd imagine Martinelli will be a reserve. I think even Jesus.
He's had an incident.
Just pulled my mic out. I got so excited. Sorry.
He's back in. All that England talk.
Yeah.
You want to unplug yourself.
I got so excited. I imagine Jesus is going to be a reserve, I would have thought, because I think they're going to start with Richarlison or some other mug. I can't even remember who they... Well, they might play Neymar as a false nine, to be fair.
Portugal. So, yeah, really. Vieira plays a lot for Portugal, doesn't he? But I don't think he's
Isn't he
under
21s?
Oh, that's it. That's where he scored all the goals for the under 21s.
Yeah.
I think he got 17
so I don't think...
in 20 odd.
Yeah. And of course, we'll be getting... hopefully getting Smith Rowe back fit while everybody's away. So that'll be good. But yeah, I can't
Will Cedric go with Portugal?
No.
There was suggestions he might. There were suggestions he might. There wasn't there. I was reading about this somewhere. I think Portugal's is released tomorrow, and there was some suggestions he might squeak in because I think they had some injuries in that department. But if he does, I don't think he's going to play. Let's say that much. But yeah, it is all very. It's all very random. Yeah.
I thought he was
he's not as bad a player as everyone says. No. I mean, he's not. He's not a starter, but it will be interesting. Am I right in saying Arsenal 1-0 up? By the way.
Oh,
well done.
I will let you know. I'll let you know the scorer when I get confirmation. But it's Eddie Nketiah, I believe, who scored. He needed that. Yes. He needed that. World Cup games. Am I right in saying they're going to be at? I think I read somewhere. Is it 2, 4, 7, and 9? Is that the UK times? I think.
Yeah, and I know it's 2. I thought it was 2, 5. So I know it's definitely one at 2 o'clock. There's definitely one in the evening, and then there's one at
later in the
night.
Evening. Yeah. Late evening kickoffs in the UK. What could possibly go wrong in the run up to Christmas? Although sharing just a personal story, because why not? Are either of you? Well, you're both old enough because you're my age. Although Danny's 20 years older than me. Do you remember USA 94 when we had all the kickoffs at like 11 o'clock at night, and probably South Korea actually as well? Was that 2002? I kind of enjoyed that.
I remember that one more. I remember waking up at like 5 o'clock to watch a game. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, people going to like the pub at 7 o'clock in the morning and having a full English and a pint. Watching England Nigeria.
Just watching the Arsenal goal.
Yeah,
Aquinas gets the ball in our half, runs the length of the pitch, passes it left to Eddie, who just taps it in.
So what you mean there is Marquinhos runs the length of the pitch 8 times, volleys it over the back of his head, and then Nketiah takes it down on the left testicle, does a bicycle kick 4 times, and rifles it into the net from 87 yards. Superb goal.
Something like that. They showed the highlights on Sky Sports News.
Okay, splendid. I've got the Man City game on the phone here, so. But yeah. Anywho, well, that's good. Well done, us. But no, I just remember those World Cup games. I remember it being quite fun because I was back at school back in those days, 94. So I'd have been 11? Yeah, and I just remember 23. Staying up. In fact, I remember watching it on a portable color TV that you actually had to press the buttons in to change channel. That's how long ago it was. Good times. Good times. Right. Let's just have a very brief look ahead to, is there anything else any of you want to add on Chelsea So I don't really want to give Aubameyang much more.
No, we don't give him much speaking about. It was just nice to see him fail. I don't really care. He's not an Arsenal player no more. Like, he's left. He probably won't be a Chelsea player for much longer if they get on Nkunku.
He could be a footballer for much longer. At the moment.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because Chelsea are already after another striker. So we'll see. Listen, like everyone here, I'm just happy that we won, especially against a team that's supposed to be a top 6 or top 4 rival, even. And to put another nail in the confidence, and just doing that and just getting. I think it was really important for us, because if Man City had ended the weekend ahead of us, you would have not heard the end of it. Oh, that's it. They've won the title now. That's it. It's over with. There's no more competition. The fact that we've still got that 2-point buffer to them, I think is very, very important. And we go away to Wolves on Sunday, I want to say.
Yeah, it's a 7:45 kickoff on Sunday, isn't it? Yeah, weird one.
Yeah, the only thing I'd be interested in, Chris, and maybe this will be a topic to talk about. I will be very interested to see the players that are going to the World Cup. I'll be very interested to see how they play this weekend, because no one's going to want to get injured. I mean, poor Mane playing for Bayern last night. He's injured and he's now missing the World Cup, which is absolutely devastating.
There is some talk he is still going to go. Apparently, there's some suggestion that it wasn't quite as bad as first feared, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I think this weekend, it's a 50-50 challenge, and you've been called up to the World Cup. Are you going to go fully into it? I think a lot of players this weekend, I'm not saying that the standard of football is going to be poor this weekend, but I don't think the players are going to be playing their heart outs.
No.
That's just my personal opinion.
Wolves' main striker he went back to Mexico a month ago, didn't he, to do his own personal rehab, Raul Jimenez, because he didn't want to risk it. So I mean, that says it all about them. Is it home or away Sunday? It's
away.
It's away. Okay, so that's a tough one, because I think City are home to Brentford, I believe. So that you'd expect them to win that game. So, and I know Wolves are not great, etc., and so on, but neither was Southampton, and we know how that went. So,
well, at least the monster up front is suspended, so he can't damage any of our players.
We'd have had to have pressed the Rob Holding protocol button if he'd been available. But
I'm just looking at the World Cup where you mentioned it. The kickoff times: England, Iran, 4:00. USA, Wales, 10:00. Wales, Iran, 1:00. England, USA, 10:00. Wales,
hang on. 10:00. So sorry, give those in AMs and PMs. So England 4 PM.
This is according to Wikipedia, and I don't know if it automatically adjusts it because they know I'm in England. But it says 4 PM for England, Iran. England, USA is 10 PM, and England, Wales is also 10 PM.
Ah, interesting.
But I don't know.
Okay, so
it doesn't say here.
UK.
Oh, UTC +3. Okay, so that would make
schedule.
That make it 1 PM England, Iran, and then England, USA 7 PM, and then England, Wales also 7 PM.
Yeah, so
I've just got it here. So it's not
the first 2 rounds of matches will kick off at 1 PM, 4 PM, 7 PM, and 10 PM.
Okay.
That's their time. So our time it's 10 AM,
oh, that time.
1 PM, 4 PM, and 7 PM.
10 AM.
I'm just looking at the
so 10 AM. Yeah, so 10 AM, 1 PM, 4 PM, and 7 PM in the UK.
So England, Iran is 1 PM. England, USA 7 PM. Wales, England 7 PM. According to this, I think this is UK time. I'm very confused, but I'm willing to go with what you said there, Karl. 10 AM, 1 PM, 4 PM, 7 PM.
They're 3 hours ahead of us.
Penalty to Brighton.
Yeah. Okay. So we will penalty to Brighton. Oh dear. So so in theory we'll be able to watch most of those. Brighton our level. That penalty was converted. So in theory, if working from home as I do, that will be a small bonus. So happy days. Right. Just sort of brief look ahead to Wolves. Do you either of you share my not concerns, but just that I think what you said there, Karl, it's kind of important, isn't it, that we sort of round off the pre-World Cup situation with a win, isn't it, and just keep that little bit of momentum ahead, keep us ahead of Man City, because you would expect them to beat. Danny Welbeck scored the penalty. You would expect Man City to beat Bournemouth. Yeah, Brentford. Sorry, Brentford at home. You would expect them to beat them. So it is kind of important that we get that win. Any concerns, either of you? Karl, start with you.
I'm always concerned about Wolves away. I just don't. Individually, they've got some really good players. Collectively, they're a bit rubbish. I mean, Neves is a player that, not going to lie, I really like, and I really, if he would come to Arsenal, I wouldn't be unhappy. I think he's a very, very good player. But Wolves are a little bit of our bogey team. They're not playing very well. They just got a new manager who's not in post, I want to say, yet. He's coming in after the World Cup.
What's his face? Not Partey.
Yeah, so on paper, should we beat them? Yes, they're 19th in the league. We should beat them, but again, this is the game just before the World Cup. How much our players going to go into it? How much is Partey going to be kind of protecting himself? And I'm not calling any of the players going to the World Cup. I'm not calling their integrity into question at all. But just like anybody, you would be a little bit fearful because you don't want to mess up your chances of going to a World Cup. So if a player didn't go into 50-50, I totally understand. I totally do. I don't know if Granit Xhaka would ever do that because he's not that guy. Like, he's definitely going to do it. Ramsdale probably knows he's not going to kick a ball when he goes to the World Cup. So, he's going to play his heart out. Saka, I think he just wants to play no matter what. Martinelli probably deep down knows he won't get much game time as well, but he'll just play anyway. And I think he's had some doubters in the Brazilian press, so he's going to want to prove some people wrong. Gabriel Jesus is desperate for a goal, so he's going to play his heart out no matter what. And Gabby at the back, he's probably desperate to show people what they're missing out on. So he's going to want to play his heart out as well. I understand that, people got some stuff to prove, but I can kind of understand as well if they didn't play to their best. But I think we have to keep that buffer to Man City, because if you go into a World Cup break 2 points ahead of Man City, that when you come back and then you look at the table and you look at that, you think, wow, like, we're still above Man City. And then you can go into that West Ham game on Boxing Day, like, full of joy.
Yeah, and it's a home game, isn't it, with West Ham as well? So it's a nice way to come back. Yeah, I agree that there's a lot of talk in listening to the Ligue 1 podcast this week, and they were talking about that very subject in terms of the final program of Ligue 1 games this weekend, and they were saying, don't tune in if you're expecting to see too many classics, because we fully expect a lot of teams to be going quite easy on each other. There's quite a lot of players who represent their countries playing in France at the moment. So
22 Steve McManamans just before he joined Real Madrid that season.
22 Steve McManamans.
Yeah, well, his last season for Liverpool was shit, wasn't it? Because he didn't want to into Real.
Yeah. It's like when a player signs somewhere and then leaves 6 months later. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what transpires there. I think I said earlier on that the Wolves game was Sunday night. Sorry, it is Saturday night. My apologies. 7:45 Saturday night, and then there's 2 games on Sunday, and then we are done. It's so weird, though, isn't it? This World Cup. It's so strange that there's all the players are going to ship out, and then there's no training time, is it? I imagine the England squad joins up on Monday, is it? Or they fly out on Monday?
They must do to get acclimatized.
Yeah, and if they kick off on Friday, that's literally 4 days, isn't it? Like 5 if you include the actual day they arrive. But when you think, you've got to fly over there, get yourself unpacked. It's like when you go on holiday, isn't it? Like, you don't really count the first
got the suitcase out.
Yeah, you don't count.
Sorry, go on, Chris.
No, I was just going to say you don't count the first day because you're traveling there, and you don't really count the last day because you're traveling back. It's all the days in between. So yeah.
I think the only thing is we don't need to talk. The players don't need to get fit per se, because they should be fit. I think it's just literally just about tactics. Like, you're surely, as soon as you get there, all you're working on is tactics, not about getting fit. Because even in the summer, you know, you have that little break, like maybe 2 weeks, and then you go to a World Cup. These players should be totally fit. So Gareth Southgate shouldn't be working on fitness. He should be working on acclimatization for the weather, because players in England, they're leaving, what are we now, 13, 14 degrees. And then you're going into a country that's going to be 25, 26, 27. You need to acclimatize. You have to, especially if we're going to be running around for 90 minutes. So he should just be working on tactical setups and things like that. But this is Gareth Southgate. Who the fuck knows what he's going to do? To be honest,
be working with a better manager.
Yeah. So that, in that sense, it should be kind of easy. But I still think it's going to be a shock for players. I mean, you think majority of the people going to World Cup are playing in Europe. The whole of Europe right now is, you know, cold. It's winter. To go into then go into, you know, a country where it's going to be 26, 27, 28-ish. It's hard. It really is going to be very hard for players.
I feel like we might have I still feel like there might be a bit of COVID around as well. If you think about, I mean, it's kind of a breeding ground, isn't it? For going from cold to hot straight away. I wonder if that might be something that might crop up as well. So,
or the other way around.
All the other way around. Yeah. Bringing it back with them. Yeah. Because it's,
I mean, you look
it's
at
not World Cup.
The World Cup final is on December the 18th. The third place playoff is December the 17th. And then 8 days after that, you're back playing football. Yeah. So how many teams are going to have their star players either knackered or not able to play because they've been playing in the a week or 10 days before over there? And you've got to come back from being over there, and you're still going to be training every day. And then you've got the ones over here. I mean, it'd be like a pre-season where you're not training as much. So it's going to be, you get the first few weeks in January, it's going to be chaos. Kris has been unplugged again. Not like MTV used to, but it's just it's APW unplugged.
Having cat issues. Come on, get down.
Come on, Loki, behave yourself, son.
Get down. Yes. No, I do. Yeah, I do. I'm sure when it gets going, like anyone, I'll watch all the games, and you know, it will be quote unquote exciting. But there's just a part of me that sort of dies inside at the thought. It's just not the same, is it? You know, a proper.
It will never happen again.
No, well, it's FIFA, so I mean,
someone they said Saudi Arabia are going for the one after next. They're playing. They bribed their way into this one. See all. Sepp Blatter and Platini and Infantino, they're all pointing the fingers at each other and going, "Oh no, it was your fault." It's like the Spider-Man thing, isn't it? They're all pointing at each other.
Yeah, I'm quite looking forward to that Netflix documentary's come out today about the corruption of FIFA.
I can't wait to watch that.
Quite looking forward to watching that. But yeah, it does. I mean, we all know. Did either of you have an opinion? I know we're going a bit off piste here, but quiet week. What can you do?
That's unlike us.
I know. Who'd have thought? Not me. Did either of you have an opinion on the Gary Neville situation this week? Because obviously we knew. I mean, David Beckham kind of sold out, didn't he, and went on the branding
Surprise.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't blame the guy. Like, it's money.
My only issue, like Gary Neville as a pundit, I absolutely hate him, but he does it on purpose because, you know, it's like all these people that go and talk sport. If you say something outrageous, you get more hits and clicks. So
Jamie O'Hara,
and Jermaine Pennant now jumping on that bandwagon because clearly he wants to be relevant again.
Yeah, relevant full stop. Yeah.
So for me, like Gary Neville is probably one of the only people who brings up ethical issues. You know, when there's like racism in football, he brought that up. He's one of the only people to actually bring it up. So I commend him for that. But then at the same time, he does stupid things. Like he'll talk about racism in football, and that's fine, like brilliant. And then he'll go and take Saudi money and fly off to do stuff like this. Like you say that his political views kind of aligned with mine a little bit of everyone else, but like I don't understand how you can bang the boat about human rights, blah blah blah. It's wrong, but then as soon as someone flashes, he's probably getting 150, 200 grand. let's be honest. But most of us turn that down for our beliefs. This is a definition of everybody's got a price. Absolutely everybody has a price.
And ours isn't much.
No, ours is not.
Anyone wants to send me over, I'm still available.
So, like, for me, don't be banging the drum talking about, they've got issues and the World Cup should never have gone there and rah, blah, blah, blah. And then at the first sign of someone waiting to check at you, you go jump ship. Like, you can't have it both ways. And for me, he did. So he's working for BN Sports, I want to say. Is that correct?
Yeah. The Richard Keys channel.
They are literally going to tell him what he can and can't say. So when you talk, he's not going to be able to mention human rights when he's commentating for them. And he's just saying that he's going to mention it. I guarantee you that's going to be in his contract. Don't talk about that, because who are BN Sports owned by? There you go.
Qatari.
So there you go. So he's not going to be able to say stuff like that. He's not going to say anything controversial at all. So you can't be waving the white flag or the white knight flag, putting on your white hat and saying, I'm the champion for this, that, and the other, and then taking their money. If you really want to take a stance, don't go. Or just shut your mouth and just take the money and go. Like, if he just took the money and then not mentioned about all the human rights stuff, no one would bat an eyelid. No one. But he's shutting off his mouth. So that's my only issue. But do you know what? Like you said, everyone's got a price. More power to him. So if someone's going to pay him 150, 200 grand to go out there, I'm sure all of us would be doing exactly the same thing. Let's be very honest.
Yeah. I do feel like a lot of people can't win. And listen, I'm not going to go on, a sort of a rant about anything to do with this because, well, I mean, that's very good from procrastinating Womble.
Read out what he's put.
Gary Neville understanding ethics is tantamount to a dog negotiating the concept of Christmas. But yeah, I just, for me, I just feel that if you really believe, or if it really affects you, etc., then, and you choose to not watch it and you choose to be no part of it, then full respect to you. I love football, so I'm going to watch the tournament. Am I being completely honest, hand on heart? Am I going to be thinking about the questionable, I was going to say the word antics, it feels a bit wrong to say that, the questionable human rights standards and, sort of views of that country whilst I'm watching the World Cup? No, I'm not. And that's just me being honest. That doesn't mean I agree with it. It doesn't mean I think it's acceptable to throw homosexuals in jail or, kill migrant workers or whatever. Of course I don't. It's absolutely horrendous. But the facts are, it's not something that I'm going to be thinking about because it's not something that directly affects me at the moment. And I appreciate that's not the way to look at things, but it's just kind of how it is. And I'm not going to just sit here and say I'm not going to watch football because of how I feel. I don't know. I just don't think you can win. And I feel like the bigger problem with this whole World Cup is the FIFA situation, is the fact that this is blatantly a corrupt organization, allegedly. And it was very much, in my mind anyway, personally, I feel like they bought this. I just do. I feel like this was a bought World Cup, very much rigged, allegedly. And this is probably going to be a one-off until 10, 20 years time when, as you say, Saudi Arabia or Bahrain or one of the other countries decide that they want to go. And that's just the way it is. But yeah, obviously, if anyone who's been affected by what's gone on over there, and indeed, one thing I would say, all joking aside, if somebody said to me, Chris, you got 2 weeks off work, here's a ticket, fancy it, I'd be like, oh, hell no. There is nothing that would get me over there. As much as I'm sure it is a beautiful country and I'm sure the weather's lovely, etc. You just know that there is going to be, something's going to go down, isn't it? And I suppose the concern I would have, especially with, it's not just England fans. There's plenty of very much dickhead French fans, Spanish fans, etc. But that something is going to go wrong somewhere. And I suspect that a lot of what could happen with the, policing, etc. over there, I think it's going to be very cleverly brushed under the carpet. And I suspect that, even if something horrendous does happen, and there is like a couple caught kissing in a ground or something, you're not going to hear about it. You might hear about it in 6 months' time when, so-and-so's little boyfriend or partner didn't come home. And that's the bit that is horrendous. So if I'm advising anybody, just sit at home, watch it, from the TV. You don't have to feel bad about watching it. You can feel uncomfortable about what's going on there, but ultimately, I'm not paid to change the circumstances. So there you go.
And even if you are going out there, I think just respect the country.
Just be sensible. Yeah,
be
exactly.
sensible. Come home, like go and watch your football and come home. There's going to be people who are going to want to take a stance and want to show out and
white knights,
and do something silly. And there's people planning to do something silly. I would just say, just think about it, because this is not a country to mess with. They've told you already. They've already told you if you do something silly, you're going to jail, and these people will put you in jail. And as much as you see all the niceness about where it is, their jails are not like ours. You ain't getting a PlayStation 4 in jail. You're not getting 3 square meals a day. Like you're
probably not getting a lawyer, let alone
like you're getting probably 1 bowl of rice a day. And this is not me being rude. This is being very honest. You're probably
lucky if you get your own corner to shit in.
So like just be sensible, people, if you're going out there, and come home safe. Like we all want to go out and watch the spectacle of football, no matter who you support, whether it be Spain, France, England, whoever. Go and watch football and come home.
And it is exactly right. And it is just a game at the end of the day. If your team gets shafted and you go out in the first round because of a dodgy penalty or whatever, suck it up, come home. Don't go out and cause a bloody stink. And unfortunately, it's the biggest cliche in the world, but it is always the small minority that ruin it for others. And I just hope, particularly that England-USA game, I have some concerns over, and possibly the England-Wales game. The Welsh are usually pretty good abroad, but I don't know, something about that game just makes me worry a little bit from a home.
It was going to be a nightmare for
well, there's that as well. There's that as well. And then there's the political side of USA-Iran as well. That's going to be interesting.
Well, USA-Iran, England, Iran.
Yeah, it's quite the group, isn't it? But anywho, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We haven't got too many questions. I think we've only got one in the starred box. So if anybody has got any questions, we've got 5-10 minutes or so.
I have a question for you, Kris and Danny. So if you had to go on the limb now, and Kris, you can't pick France. Right, so just out on the limb, who's going to win the World Cup quickly?
Argentina.
Okay, and you, Daniel?
Brazil, Argentina haven't got a fucking chance. I only got one player.
I don't know. I don't know about that. And that one player is pretty good, to be fair, and he's playing quite well. So, who do you think, Karl? Let's ask you the same.
So I'm really torn, because I honestly think, because this World Cup is so crazy, and if they had Mane, I would have said yes. I would have gone for an African country. Or
you're going
Ghana.
Down the same lines as I am. I
really would. So I think Brazil have got a very good chance, but then I also really do think like a Ghana, I've got a really good chance.
Belgium.
No, Belgium are the Spurs of international football.
Yeah,
Canada.
They're just.
Oh God.
No, although I think Canada might go further than some expect. Do you know, this is a complete wild card, but I've got a feeling Denmark might go far. I don't know why. I just have I feel like if there was ever a World Cup where a nation that isn't one of the big 3 or 4 can win it, I feel like this is the one. The Germans and the Spanish are being very cleverly not mentioned at all, which leads me to think that they'll probably do quite well because nobody's mentioning them. Portugal, it's Ronaldo's last stand. I don't know what that really means, but it could mean something. They're notoriously hard to beat. I don't know. I just feel I feel like Argentina and Brazil, if nothing else, because they're very well acclimatized to those sort of circumstances of the temperature and everything.
I've got a question about that. Is there normally if it's in Brazil or a country below the equator, as long as it's not Argentina because that's freezing, then African and South American teams will do well because of the hot weather. But every single game is going to be played indoors, isn't it? in air-conditioned stadiums. So
air-conditioned, yeah, but it's still humidity, isn't there? So, I mean, it's...
Well, doesn't the air conditioning get rid of some of the humidity?
Some, but I don't think...
But who's the temperature in the stadiums going to be given the advantage to when Saudi play? When Qatar plays someone, are they? I don't know who they're playing, but when are they going to accidentally pump the temperature? He said the volume, pump the temperature up in the stadium. I mean, look, you got Qatar, Ecuador, you got Qatar, Senegal, but then you got Qatar, Netherlands. All you have to do is pump the volume at the temperature up to 30, 40 degrees.
There's another one, the Netherlands, by the way. That's another country nobody's talking
no
about.
Goal scorers, have they?
Yeah,
I think from that group, you're probably
talking.
talking. I think you're probably talking Senegal and Holland going through from that group. But,
yeah, I think so.
Other than Memphis Depay, who's going to score goals for Holland?
Yeah, but you say, well, Cody Gakpo's in pretty decent nick, isn't he? And they've got a few. I don't think they've announced their squad yet, but
yeah, but he shits the bed whenever he plays anyone at half decent.
Yeah, I don't know. I just and as for the temperature thing, the one caveat I'd say to that is they're only air-conditioned matches. They'll be out there training in high temperatures, aren't they? So you saw what happened to Spurs when they had to run 3 lengths of the pitch in South Korea in the summer. I mean, all the English boys were fucked. So, I mean, I don't know. It might. Yeah, and it might make no difference at all. It might make... I feel like this is going to be, like you said, it's one of those World Cups that it's going to come down to a huge slice of luck who wins it in terms of like who just happened. I feel like it's going to be the team that are most balanced, that are able to rotate, that have the most balanced squad, that are able to win key games at key times. And I think it will also depend on halftime, by the way. Arsenal 1-1. I feel like it will be... I just feel like you'll see a team that will get through the group stage and will come out of nowhere, and they could be the team that go far. And genuinely, I haven't looked at the standings of the groups and how they all work and who could draw who. I think I'm right in saying France could get England in the second round. I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, that's correct.
And I think, am I right in saying Brazil could draw Argentina in the semis? I think I read that somewhere.
No,
I mean, it's
didn't go that far.
So I mean,
it help? Go on.
No.
You keep leaving gaps.
No, sorry, that was me done. Yeah.
Would it help having for countries that have players of African or South American heritage playing for them, because they're going to be able to deal with the weather better? Because then you got to look at the likes of Germany, and I was just looking. You got Gnabry there, who is a magnificent player, and Leroy Sané, another one who's a magnificent player. Are they going to have an advantage if you've got a load of Brazilians? Not a load of Brazilians in your bloody team. No, naturalised players, because we know I've not even looked at the Qatar squad, but I'd imagine very few of the Qatar squad are actually
from Qatar.
From Qatar. They're all going to be from Brazil.
Well, nowadays you don't even have to be born in the country you play for, do you? So I mean, you can literally
Terry
be
Butcher was born in Singapore.
Yeah,
Tony Dorigo was Australian.
Yeah, John Aldridge, remember? Yeah, and there's a few.
I'm just looking here. There's every single one of the Qatari squad, the current squad, are all playing in Qatar. But I don't recognise a single name.
But then, realistically, I mean, barring the South Africa miracle, are they really going to get out of the group? Probably not. I mean, I think they're fodder, aren't they? I don't know. The whole thing, it's just weird. So usually when you have a normal World Cup in the summer, you finish the Premier League season, you applaud or you cry into your tea for what season you just had, and then you gear up, don't you? You read all the blogs, you get on all the podcasts, everything. I sort of feel like I genuinely, hand on heart, if you said to me, name 3 of the groups, I couldn't. Like, I know the France group, I know the England group. I haven't got a bloody clue who's in what group until I sit down and look at it. So, I mean, I don't know. It just feels a bit weird. And Nigeria there as well. Did they qualify? They didn't qualify.
No,
did
they never.
No. That's a shame. But yeah, I mean,
at the Qatari side, they've got a Portuguese bloke. They've got some Iraqis. They got someone from, I think it was Senegal that I looked at. Someone from Bahrain. So they're not at all like I thought they would be. There's someone from France.
And I guess the bigger question about all of this is who's going to be the next James Rodriguez, the guy that scores the worldie, who gets signed by Chelsea for 740 million, only to end up in like Ligue 2 next season. as a backup fullback or something. Because there's going to be one of those, don't you? Do you remember Shabalala, the South African dude?
Yeah.
He scored, and he went to Nottingham Forest, I think. I don't even know where he plays now. Yeah, that didn't work out. But, yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows? We'll have to see. But, yeah.
As long as Arsenal players come back fit, that's all
I was just going to say, I agree. Yeah. Aside from seeing France go far, potentially, and England massively cocking it up, I don't really care as long as the Arsenal boys come back fit. And, one thing that would be quite interesting is if this is purely from my interests here, but you've got 3 players at PSG, 1 place for France, 1 place for Brazil, 1 place for Argentina. That could be a really fun dressing room, depending on what happens in potential finals or semi-finals. But hey ho. And Formerly Knows has actually just put in the chat there about Japan. Interesting, by the way, and had no idea that you were from Japan, Noza. So thank you for sharing that information. They're a nation that I always find them really fun, the Japanese. I used to quite enjoy watching South Korea, but less so now for Spurs-related reasons. But I'd love to see Japan upset the apple cart and come out of that group, because I think they're in with Spain and Germany. So do we even know if Tomiyasu's going fit, or is he going? I know he's been selected, but is he actually still injured, or I didn't hear anything else about that injury. That
you haven't really heard anything.
No, so hopefully it's just a knock. But yeah, we shall see. Okay. The only 2 questions I think we had were, so Jim Eves asked on thoughts on Gary Neville saying we will not finish in the top 4. I didn't see this, I must admit. Surely that's bait, isn't it? Surely.
Where's Adrian Durham gone? He's not. He doesn't do drive time on Talk Sport anymore.
Probably works for BT Sports.
Well, it's gold thingy and Darren Bent, Manchester Rovers legend.
God knows then. But I didn't hear Gary Neville say this. It surprises me. I'd like to know the context behind it. I don't know whether it's just a flippant remark, or because I genuinely, hand on heart, I don't see 4 clubs better than us this season. As much as I want Liverpool to be a finished club, that they're going to go on some sort of run post-World Cup. That lot down the road will go on a run and inevitably bottle it as usual. Man United, that Villa result aside, and well done, Emery, for that, by the way. That they'll be up and around it. Chelsea can't be shit forever. Although I have to say, he's already under fire, isn't he? Which is hilarious. And then Man City, I think we all accept, are probably going to win the league. So I just don't see that there's 4 clubs better than us. So I feel like that's bait, that comment. But the only other question, maybe we'll finish on this one, was from Boytendio. And he said, I'm asking as many places, I'll find the answer. Would you have Jesus and Odegaard, or Jesus and another striker, not Haaland? I personally am with what we've got. Either of you have any different thoughts on that?
Jesus and Odegaard.
I guess what he's saying is, would you have the striker at the expense of Odegaard? Because I would have another striker with Odegaard. I take his point. Like, we are short.
He's still growing into that position, isn't he? He's not magnificent game after game, but that is the kind of position where he's 23, something like that.
Yeah.
So
he's still very young.
Yeah, he's not going to be the Dennis Bergkamp, which we all want him to be in that kind of position. That's going to take him years to do that. But he's playing regularly. He's getting assists. He's getting involved. But it does give him a little Reiss smile when you see something needs to be done, and Xhaka is the one organising everything, and Xhaka's doing the team talks, and we know he's the captain on there.
Yeah, and it makes sense to give it to Odegaard for longevity, just in terms of silly things like the branding and the interviews and the sort of building a younger player up. And yeah, I mean, I do get it. And yeah, Karl, would you? The weird thing is, I was watching 36-year-old Olivier Giroud scorpion kick the winner for AC Milan last week and whipping his shirt off, only to be sent off.
2 goals, 2 assists, wasn't it?
Yeah, in the Champions League as well. And to be fair, Olivier, if I had that set of muscles, I'd whip my shirt off after every goal as well, mate. Fair play to you. But I watched that game thinking to myself, I'd kill for Olivier Giroud back at Arsenal right now. yeah, would you? Are you a bit like me, where you'd rather not say you wouldn't want Odegaard, but you'd love to have somebody as well as Jesus and Eddie, just another option, a different type of striker?
Yeah, I think we spoke about this last time I was on the pod. I want a striker who's tall, so that if the ball into feet is not working, get the cross in, not just long balls, but even that might work. You know, hit up to the big man, he can control it, knock it onto the little man. I don't think there's anyone in our squad at the moment who can kind of do that. So I like something different. But, you know, Martin Odegaard, like Danny said, you know, Martin Odegaard's not brilliant every game. There are some games he totally goes missing. And, you know, you sometimes just want more from him. Then there's some games where he's just absolutely brilliant. But, you know, I know it's not an excuse we can use all the time. He's young, he is. And he's going to grow into that position. He's going to get better. And then when he does get better and when he has a total understanding of how Gabriel Jesus plays, because I think the partnership with him and Saka is really good. Once he gets an understanding of, you know, how the rest of the team play, and once they click, it's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I've got one last question that I've just been reminded of by seeing something in the chat that I was going to mention. And I'm going to, just before I ask this question, I'm going to say off the bat, I like the person that's done this. I know Danny's not as big a fan, but I like the person who's done this, and this is not a slight at anybody doing their job, which is journalism. I'll ask you, Karl, first, because I suspect Danny would just say, don't care. So I'm going to ask Karl. The interview that James Gunnerblog did with AFTV in the week, I feel like some people are hiding away from this a little bit. It caused a lot. I think it's the first time this season the Arsenal fan base has been divided, but it did cause quite a lot of discussion on the artist formerly known as Twitter this week. I just wondered what your take on this was, because I've never met James, but I quite like his work with Andrew on Arsblog, and you know, Gunnerblog is. I still think The Athletic is a little bit. I think it thumbs its nose to people. I still think it's a little bit highbrow. I don't think it's worthy of a subscription. Let's put it that way. That's just my views. But what did you make of the article? I mean, did you feel that it was fair? Do you subscribe to the idea that we should sort of just say bygones be bygones, or do you sit more in the camp of, well, actually, they did have, let's put it politely, some very shady characters, and let's not forget they basically divided this fan base off their own back. They chose to do that. They chose the toxicity. They made no attempt to make it a positive channel. Did you sort of did you care even? Did it raise any eyebrows when you saw that?
I'm gonna try and make this very, very short. I don't care. But for me, it was a bit of a puff piece. AFTV, Arsenal Fan TV, whatever we're going to call them, made their name of the reaction videos of 2 to 3 characters. You know, in the time when Arsenal weren't very good, and the reaction videos, and shout out to them, that's how they made their channel big, because fans from even different football clubs were running. Every time Arsenal would lose, they'd run to the YouTube and watch AFTV and just hear 2 of their main characters say controversial stuff, and you know, that's how they made their brand. I, for one, I used to watch it, and then it got really tired really quickly, and then I stopped because it wasn't funny anymore. They, you know, just like everyone else, wants to see the reactions, and then it just wasn't funny anymore. And then you realize that even when we used to win, they'd find something to moan at, because people don't like happy. People don't like happy supporters. Happy doesn't get you hits and clicks. Winning, you know, people being happy, joyous, doesn't get you the clicks that you want. People go there for the bad reaction. It's like here, Danny, when we used to do like the religious post-game shows, if we was to lose to, I don't know, a club, our
Swansea
views would skyrocket. Our views would be absolutely out of this world. And because people wanted to hear us rant, they wanted to hear us moan, and they wanted to hear, us just be full of bile.
No one gives a fuck now. We're top of the league.
Yeah, horribleness. So, and for me, you can't. That's how you built your brand. Yes, they've got rid of some of their questionable characters, and now they're trying to do more of a watch along, and I think they're different, like branching out into different stuff. They don't really do to the best of my knowledge, they don't do the after game reactions. If they do, I don't know because I don't watch the channel. Listen, Robbie's made his money off that, and he's a very rich man, and he's, he was one of the first to do what he does. So I'm always gonna duff my cap at him. Brilliant. The concept of what he done, absolutely brilliant. How you did it, you danced with the devil. You did. He definitely did. And I don't know many people that have a positive word to say about the man. And I'm sure we've all seen the interviews about the other person who's come out of jail and, said some stuff. Don't really gonna get into that. It is what it is. For me, I don't care enough about them. Look, they've made their channel. They've done what they're doing. They're trying to rebrand. They obviously are trying to rebrand because, they're probably losing hits and clicks. I'm sure they probably are. And that puff piece that James done for them is going to get them hits and clicks because people are going to inquire, what's this about? It is what it is. Like, do your thing. Just don't do it on the misery of people. And that's how they got big. They did it on the misery of people. And like I said, that Danny said, we're winning now. So you've got nothing to be miserable now. So now you're trying to be all this, happy. Oh, look what we're about. We're brilliant. We're joyous. And so for me, like, live and let live. Don't really care about them. But don't be a white knight and think that you're God's gift to, all fan channels. And that's what we should base it on, because just remember the dirt that you did. And
be
it
accountable.
will come back to haunt you. And, like I said, like, stories are now coming out about things that have happened. We're not going into it. Don't care. But this man, Robbie, has got blood in his hands. Like,
Sorry, Nottingham Forest have just scored.
Has got blood in his hands. So yeah, it is what it is.
No, I think you summed that up really well, actually. The first two things I thought when I read, well, I didn't read the article, but when I read that it was coming out, my first thought was, this feels very organized by, like when a politician gets caught being wanked off by his secretary, and he has to very quickly put out a story about how he's really looking into the budget and looking to make a better world for us all. And they look for positive PR, don't they? And they pay people to tweet certain things. It almost felt to me a little bit like AFTV, maybe.
Yeah, the timing of it was very weird, especially with what's happened afterwards.
And I thought it was quite interesting that, and again, this is not a knock on Andrew or any of the guys at Arsblog. I thought it's quite interesting that subject was never brought up on the Arscast as well. I did wonder if perhaps they might address, because I'm sure people would have tweeted questions relating to the article and it wasn't mentioned. And do you know what? Like, from the other thought I had was, I just thought, do you know what? James is doing his job. Like, if somebody said to me, Kris, I'm going to pay you 70 grand a year starting tomorrow, you need to follow all of Tottenham's under 21 games, I'd fucking do it, because it's a job.
You've made a bit of a haul for money during this show. It's a couple of times you've said that now.
Mate, I'm skinned. Like, you know how expensive it is to live these days. But you know what I mean?
If it isn't.
It's a job. I'm sure if our Simon was taken off Arsenal and told to cover Spurs, he would just get on with it. Like,
he'd be back here, is what he'd be.
Well, yeah, but sometimes you just do what you do. My only thought was, if James had a choice about whether to do that article or not, personally, I probably wouldn't have touched it with a barge pole. But I also don't have any, like you, I don't have any, a dog in the fight. Like you, Karl, I've probably been at games where I've seen the furore that goes on when they were recording. It divided a lot of people. There was a lot of very rough, opinions being hurled around at that time. And they did, they did build a brand off the back of the negativity. And I think it's fair to say spawned other channels of other football clubs who jumped on board that as well. But, as I said before, accountability is a big word. If you can admit to your mistakes and you can hold yourself accountable. And let's also not forget that, one of their members is no longer with us. And you can't tell me that some of the things that he went through were not related to some of the abuse that he got, which I think, good point, actually. Yeah, well, there you go. So, I mean, in the era that we all focus on mental health a lot, I don't care who you are. If you're getting whether you, I know people say, well, you put yourself in that position. We do it every week. We put ourselves on camera every week. But if you are suddenly being tweeted and your phone is going off 100 times a day with someone calling you a F Jeff and whatever, that's going to make you feel pretty shit about yourself, isn't it? So, I think we have to be a little bit careful about, and I think overall, both of you would probably agree we're pretty balanced on this show. I've said a few things in the past that I probably regret coming out with and eating the moment. I've done a few rants, but overall, I think we're fairly level-headed. And I guess the difference is we're not looking to make money off it. So, money talks. But
the biggest views we got last season was the emergency podcast that you did. I think that got best part of 10,000 views. If we wanted to, and then the next one we didn't do it, so it only gets 2,000 or 3,000. So we know what to do. We just don't want to do that. And I think
Avon.
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think Avon made a good point as well. Sky Sports News, TalkSport always were a bit clickbaity. I feel like Sky Sports News are not really a reputable source anymore. No. Like if I want my transfer news or whatever, gone are the days where I'd leave that on all day. Yeah, half of their stuff. Look at the Tomiyasu when we signed him and that prick Carve. Oh, I don't even know. He's not even a right back. He's not even a footballer. Like, guys, if you can't even do your fucking research, don't call yourself a football pundit. Don't call yourself a journalist, because that was
but that's
the
what
most
they do
lazy.
now. That's exactly what we were talking about with Gary Neville. Gary Neville taken to say, if he did say that, like about Arsenal not making top four, because he knows he's going to get a reaction. He knows this. Like he even said it on when Liverpool beat Spurs last week. Haha, by the way. He said it. Arsenal fans are always on at me. Like because he knows exactly what he's doing. He says something controversial about one of the best supported clubs on Twitter. We're a
force. Strictly have found out.
Exactly. That's hilarious. So that says it all. And the fact
Week
that
8,
the fact that if you say something, it's like you said, Talk Sport as well. Talk Sport, and that's the reason why Richard Keys says controversial stuff about Arsenal, because we are one of the most supported supported clubs on Twitter. And you say something wrong about us. The one thing about Arsenal fans, you say something about us, we'll come for you. Like we may be divided, but you say something about, like, an outsider says shit about us. Like we can say shit about each other. We don't really care. But if you say something about us and you're from the outside, we're coming for you.
Yeah. What you're basically saying, Karl, is we are fucking massive. Which is no, but I know, I completely agree. And as Diaz just said there, it's much easier to make content if you have something to moan about. We aren't adapted to notice bad. We need to notice what's bad and fix it. For some people, it's bad that Arsenal are coming to the ball. Yeah, I agree with that. The only thing I would say, and I'll wrap it up at this point, is I think certain pundits, and I'm going to use Micah Richards as an example of this. I think you can speak. Yeah, I do. And I was just going to say, I think you can speak a lot of sense and not be controversial and still have a very high standing in the game.
Well, he's been doing it his entire career.
Yeah, exactly. And
how many other fans say they love Ian Wright? And he didn't even play for. Didn't play for them.
And I wouldn't class Wrighty as a student of the game, really.
No,
like he knows his onions. I'm not saying he doesn't know his stuff, but he's not like he's one of those pundits who's gone into like XG or whatnot, is he? He's not. He's not one of those.
He's got a folder full of stats.
No, he's not Adrian Clark, is he?
From the heart.
Yeah, exactly. So
how are you doing getting him on the show, Karl, as your mum used to babysit for him or whatever it was? Because 10 years we've been waiting, but Karl, and so far,
Ian Wright's a very, very busy man. Like
he is. Yeah.
That man's everywhere.
I'd argue he's busier now than he was when he was playing football.
Yeah, like he's really into women's football, which is, he's a big advocate for that. And shout out him. And it's his birthday the other day, so
It was.
He's into women's football.
Yeah, he's very
into
very big ambassador of the women's game. Yeah, and I think I'm right in saying he's got a contract with Adidas as well. Oh, Nottingham Forest 2, Tottenham 0. Jesse Lingard.
But they've got like a strong squad as well. I'm sure they've
got a full strength squad out. Oh, yeah.
Great goal. The first goal for Forest, running down the left-hand side, curled it top right corner. Eddie just did one of those and hit the post.
I couldn't care if it went in off Steve Cooper's arse as long as Spurs lose. I genuinely could not care less. But yeah, just before we go, should we have a look at Tottenham's team and see how strong? Because I'm sure somebody tweeted before the game and said they've gone full strength. Let's have a look at what absolute bottle jobs they've got out.
If Kane's playing, then that's what I want to hear.
Surely they won't have played him. Surely. Hang on. Let's just have a look at this.
I'll bring it up.
I'm doing it as we speak. Here we go. Tottenham. Where is it? Have you got it there?
Yeah.
Paris.
He's playing fucking
Bentancur, Bissouma. So arguably the goalkeeper and Højbjerg's come off. Højbjerg's come off or come on? He's come off. Bentancur came on. So arguably only Skip, the goalkeeper, and maybe Doherty could be deemed as not first choice, right?
Serge Aurier is having a great game. How much did he cost them? And they let him go on a free.
Good old Serge Aurier. But yeah, that's fucking. I mean, let's not talk too soon. All right, Spurs can, Forest are dreadful. Let's not forget that. So things can change. So let's not jinx it. But
and they also go to how many times did Spurs go 2-0 down and then come back?
Yeah,
to the penalties.
Yeah,
just ask Marseille.
Oh, Renan Lodi scored the first goal.
Great goal.
Yeah. Brazilian fullback.
Lingard jumped up, crossed from the left, jumped up, headed it down.
And he's been bloody dreadful since he signed for him as well. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? I'll never forgive him for that dance.
They're getting 200 grand a week. You'd pay for him, wouldn't you, Chris? As we figured out, you'd do anything for money.
200 grand a week. I'd pay for him for 200 quid a week. Fuck that. Anyway.
Is Aurier a Gooner?
He was pictured in an Arsenal shirt once upon a time. Yes, to be called a gooner, I think is probably a stretch. But it was when we had all the African players. He seemed to be quite keen on coming to us when he was at Toulouse. I think during the Rosicky era, like the Nike shirts with the bands around the shirt. What was that 2004-05 era?
I was imagining Giroud wearing that.
Yeah, good times. Anyway, I feel like that's as good a time as any to wrap this shit up. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So moving forwards, preview show, Danny, before Wolves Friday.
I don't know if I can be fucked anymore.
And if that doesn't sum up ABW, nothing ever will.
Well, the enthusiasm is to if we get an entire run of a month, and I like to try and get to close to 50,000 views a month. I know AFTV will fart in a milk bottle and put it up there, and they'll get 2 million in an afternoon. But
I could do that if you want me to.
Talking about the AFT stuff, everyone I know who's met Robbie, who's met Troops, who has met Lee Judges and Dan, lovely people. The only person I've ever heard gone, he's a fucking arsehole's DT. And ABW's never been had any bad words to say about AFT. And fuck me, do they play it well? So, yeah, if like this month, there's no point going out, getting up early and doing all that stuff. If it's going to be, there's only a few games and no one cares about it. If I feel like it on the day, then I might do it. But
bear in mind it's a 7:45 kickoff, so if you
might be up
5, you might be up in time for that. So I guess what I'll say then, as is always the case, is if Danny can be fucked, we'll do a preview show. If not, don't expect anything. Are you running the spaces, Karl, on Saturday night? Or
no,
is it a bit late?
I'll be at work.
You'll be okay.
Sadly, no.
Cool. So no spaces this week, but we will be back. I still have to kind of finalize details, but I am in negotiations with people about a World Cup show. So just to give you guys a heads up, you won't be ABW-less for the World Cup. We will still be doing stuff. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to do a daily show after all the group games,
because you'd get bored.
I can't be bored.
No,
So,
time. The fans will be like, yeah, we'll do it. And then they'll be like, can anyone jump
you'll be
on?
like, oh, fuck this for a game of soldiers. And I've actually got a job now, so, you know, I've got to do work. But we will probably aim to do, what I'll say is we'll commit to the regular one show a week. We may do, it might be a case of, look, we might just go live. And that is a beautiful segue for me to remind you to flick the bell for notifications. You see what I did there? So I'm genius. Like, I did my thing and stuff. But yeah, subscribe. So basically when we go live, you'll know. But the plan is to, for those of you who are around and are old enough to remember, I used to host a show called the Football Hipsters, which was my own kind of standalone idea. But then we merged it with ABW. So we will probably put out some hipster-based podcasts under the guise of ABW throughout the World Cup. So because it's not really Arsenal related, and Brighton are 2-1 up, splendid. So yeah, but so look out for that. As I say, I don't know when they'll be. They won't be on they won't be on the England or France days, I wouldn't have thought, because we'll be busy with those. But yeah, we will pop up with a couple of those. And next week's ABW show, whenever we get around to doing it, will probably be a proper full World Cup deep dive, unless of course we beat Wolves 14-0 and we've got lots to talk about, or in case we lose, of course, where in that case, bring on the views, everybody.
10,000 views, here they come. Emergency podcast.
Emergency podcast, burn it to the ground. But anyway, keep an eye on the socials, etc. And like I say, if you're not subscribed, please do. And also, if you could give us a like, that would be fantastic. Leave a comment if you so choose, or if you desire. And you know, if nothing else, just tweet Danny Abuse. So yes, it's all fine. It's all fine. Or just tweet Josh and see who he supports this week, or what other podcast he's on next week, or whatever. Love you, Josh. Right. Karl, thanks to your mum for making you available, and thank you to you for coming on.
No worries. She's still not talking to you, by the way. I just texted her and she said, tell Kris I'm still not talking to him.
Fair enough. I wouldn't talk to me either, to be fair, but that's fine. Danny, you kind of had to be here because there literally was nobody else but me and Karl. So thank you as always.
That's all right. And thank you very much to you and Loki for making his podcast debut. He's now done more shows than Jeff this season.
Yes, that's very true. He's actually sat behind me. He's curled up behind me, which is quite the place for a cat to sit.
Oh.
Anyway, thank you to all of you in the chat. You guys are the real ones, as I've said to you 100 times before. Without you guys, there is literally no point in us doing this, because it'd just be a load of waffle. But it'd be to no one. So thank you very much for all of you who have been in the chat this evening. You are the real ones. And to all of you listening in delay, thank you as always. We will be back after the Wolves game next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Who knows? It'll be a nice surprise. But until then, good luck to Arsenal for the rest of the evening, although it doesn't appear to be going too well right now. And we'll talk to you after the Wolves game next week. Stay safe, everybody, and keep it Arsenal. We'll speak to you very soon.
As soon as I scored that goal, I was fucking livid. Get down, dog. Splendid business.
He nearly caught the bloody thing. What are you talking about?
So I was just eating a full quiche. Well, you don't often see them at it. So when you see them in the supermarket, they need to be swagged, microwaved immediately, and get the brown sauce on and bosh, Bob's your uncle.
Never in doubt.